My name is Riley Brady. I run for Nike Trail Running, and I coach with Uplift Running. You can find me on Instagram at rye.outside and Strava at Riley Brady. I'm entered in Run Rabbit Run 100 for this fall. So I'm from Pennsylvania, just north of Philadelphia. And I actually got my start running in high school. I wanted to join the cross country team when I transferred schools, and I knew the soccer coach at the school. And she kind of talked me into playing soccer instead, and that was my sophomore year. And then we did a mile time trial every Friday on the soccer team, and I would just smoke the entire rest of the team. It was my favorite day of practice. And I was like, yeah, I'm in the wrong sport right now. So I ended up doing cross country the last 2 years of high school, had a phenomenal coach who really instilled a lifelong love for running in me. And then when I got to college, I school was just not as challenging as high school. If you know how to manage your time in college, like you're not in class all day and then going to sports and then having to do homework at the end of the day. You have more of those gaps during the day to take care of your business. And so I just filled that time with running. I was like, why not just keep running laps in the woods on the back of campus? Yeah, so I was lucky and had some pretty early success. So back when I started, a lot of these races had requirements, especially the longer distances. So I met my friend in college who was from Ithaca, New York, and she was like, "There's this 50-mile race I want to do. Cayuga Trail's 50." And at the time, you needed to run either a marathon or a 50K in order to get in to the 50 miler. So we just like looked around really quickly. I never run anything more than a half marathon before that point. So I found this 50K in New Jersey at the New Jersey Ultra Fest. I was like, oh, this is perfect. Like it's a loop course. Like I can just go straight to 50K here. Like I don't even have to stop at the marathon. And I did that and I ended up coming in second to her at that race. It was small, it wasn't very competitive, but I do think having some of that early success was, it makes you want to keep coming back for more. And then just kind of kept plugging away at it over the years. And I definitely, I think when I was in college, I was looking up to all these people in the sport. And I was just convinced, even though I had no business being convinced of this, that I was going to get a golden ticket and like I was going to go to Western States one day. So I don't know why I thought that. My brain wasn't formed yet. It just, from a pretty young age, I was like, yeah, this is what I want to be doing with my life. Think it was really anything physical. I think it was much more a mental skill set for me. My parents were never very pushy about sports. Like my brother and I both had to say, "Hey, like do we get to do sports with our friends?" at a certain point. And, I was never very good at a lot of the ball sports that I played. So I think it was more just that I, from a pretty young age, have had a strong work ethic and have wanted to do the best that I can do at whatever I'm doing. And running is a sport I think that lends itself to just having a work ethic. And, especially over the longer distances, there is a certain point where you're just like, you're putting one foot in front of the other. It's all about who can just kind of keep going, not necessarily like how fast you're doing it. At least when I was starting out, that's kind of what it felt like. So a couple reasons. One, I actually tried to do Run Rabbit Run many years ago, and I started the race with an injury. I should not have started. I learned my lesson. But so then it was always in the back of my mind, like, okay, I have to go back to this race eventually. I can't end it on a DNF. And then I came back to crew some friends last year at Run Rabbit, and I had just come home from CCC, which was a terrible experience. I think in part because I spent days throwing up. And it was just like everything that I love about trail running at Run Rabbit Run that CCC was not. Like the community was there at Run Rabbit Run. It felt like a local event. It is kind of local for me being in Boulder. I just I don't know. I don't know that I can really put my finger on it other than to say that like I really like the community feel there. It feels like the kind of race that I want to do. So after doing that last fall, I was like, all right, yeah, next year is the year I got to go back and do Run Rabbit Run. It's right in my backyard. It's in Steamboat. Like, doesn't get better than that. And I guess I do want to add to that, like, I really like that Run Rabbit gives back to the community too. Like, I know that you guys donate a ton of money to charities, and like, uh, yeah, I think that that's an important part of when we're putting these races on in these small towns. Like, you can't just take from the local community. Like, you got to give something back. I think I have learned that I just don't want to look at start lists. I'll see friends when I get to the start line. If they're out there, great. But I can't control anybody else. It's not worth my time to be fretting about somebody else's training. Like, I control my training. I know what I can do usually on the day, and that's what I'm gonna focus on, not what anybody else is doing out there. Usually pretty in my own head. Yeah, starting, I'm usually pretty nervous on start lines. I'm not gonna lie. So just trying to like tune out whatever noise is around me and just kind of focus on like, okay, we gotta once the gun goes off, everything kind of goes calm. So just kind of like getting to that point where you actually get to start the running, just trying to breathe, listen to my music, yeah, get ready for a nice, fun, long day. Well, I feel like my all my sort of like bad days have really been around nutrition. Just a lot of throwing up out there, you know? And I don't know, you're not thinking straight. You're just like, all right, I guess I have to just keep going, one foot in front of the other. And hopefully I think I've got that a little bit more dialed now. I'm hoping that those days of just like endlessly vomiting are behind me, but you never know what an ultra is gonna throw at you. It's anything can happen, you know? I really do appreciate that you guys are investing in the elites that way. And yeah, especially somebody who just recently signed with a sponsor, like coming into this year, I didn't know if I was going to have a sponsor. And then that really was an added incentive, I think, when you don't have whatever things that the sponsors are incentivizing, like for the races itself to actually have that prize money, and you're an up and comer in the sport and like trying to make it, like that is huge. And I really am appreciative of that way that you give back to trail running. This is going to be so embarrassing, but I really think I would just try to invest it and save it. I'm not a big like spend it on fancy things kind of person. So, yeah, that would be like icing on the cake. I tend to be a long game person. If it looked like that was kind of within reach, and yeah, I don't think I would want to burn too many matches sprinting up the first climb. I think the first thing is to get into dry clothes and the puffiest puffy jacket I can possibly find. Yeah, getting warm is the absolute top priority once I finish a race. Your body's just so messed up. And then after that, it's, whatever sounds good, in terms of food. Sometimes that's a burger. Sometimes I'm just barely kind of like nibbling on a pretzel. You know, depends on how you feel when you finish. Absolutely nothing from the aid station. Liquid fueling. So I use the Precision Carb Only drink mix because it doesn't have salt in it. And I can add the right amount of salt that I need, which is an extremely low amount compared to most people. But yeah, pretty much anything that involves chewing or gels, any of that stuff is a no-go. I'm pretty solidly on the liquid diet while I'm out there. Sort of. So I definitely go into a race with a plan. And increasingly, as I've had to try and grapple with these stomach issues that I've had, I've gotten more kind of scientific about how I approach the fueling side of things and kind of what I want, at least when I see crew and what I need to be taking out on course with me, depending on obviously how long it is until the next time you see crew or can get to a drop bag. But, some people are really focused on their splits and uh I'm kind of vibes based once I'm out there. Just I think you need that mix of doing the homework ahead of time and then being able to make decisions on the fly and kind of be flexible in the moment. At least to some degree. I'm probably not going to just roll up and blow up the entire plan, especially if things are going well. But I like having that framework in place and then the flexibility to kind of make tweaks and changes as I need to. Black Canyon when I passed Mary, all the commentators were like, "Oh, like Riley's making a move, like intentionally not stopping at the aid station for fluids." And I was like, "Guys, I was never going to stop at that aid station for fluids. Like that was not an on-the-fly decision." So yeah, I don't know if I think if we were like 3 miles from the end and somebody's stopping at an aid station, like, yeah, I'm gonna blow through there. I'm not gonna take that time at that point. But I don't know that I've ever quite been in that situation where it's tight all the way down to the wire. I mean, I do feel like I thrive the longer the race goes, at least to some degree. Like I what I can do when I'm fresh is like pretty similar to what I can do when I'm tired, which I think is partially like my fresh speed isn't that high compared to, other elites. But I can just hold it for a long, long, long time. So I actually had several friends in it, so I was kind of like bouncing between crews. Um, my friend Claire was running. I actually didn't end up getting to see her out there um, as much as I had hoped. Leah Yingling obviously ended up coming in second on a really, I think, pretty devastating day for her. And then my friend Allie and Regan were also running, and they were more sort of like mid-pack runners. So yeah, I've chatted with them. Definitely talking with Leah was pretty illuminating just because I know that people losing their vision at this race is a seems to be a chronic problem. And so then kind of seeing that in action, it's definitely made me be more aware of some of these other problems that maybe I haven't encountered before, that being at high altitude and being in the cold could potentially could come up and I might have to deal with them. It's a hard day, regardless of who you talk to, if they're at the front of the pack or the middle of the pack or the back of the pack. And I know that the cold is, especially as someone who's a wimp about the cold, like I am very aware that that is something that like can take people out of this race from talking to friends who have done it. So I make a new playlist for every race that I do. It's a lot of like old country music, like Waylon and Willie, Emmylou Harris. Not what a lot of people would consider pump up music, but it's what I really like. So, a lot of that, and then I have some like 80s pop. Like you have to have Whitney Houston on your playlist. You just have to. And then some like a little bit of modern pop. So probably a different playlist than what most people are listening to out there, but it works for me. So I do think this is just going to kind of bring it full circle from what we were talking about at the beginning of this conversation, but the community is pretty important to me. The trail running community has always been very welcoming. It has been where I found so many of my friends. And so that is a pretty big driving factor about why I think I've stayed in this sport, why I continue to come back to this sport. Um, I I used to volunteer for a bunch of races. I've kind of gotten away from that over the last couple of years, and I'm really trying to bring that back and try and like rope some of my friends into that too. Because I really do care about this sport and yeah, the people in it, and I think it's important to be on both sides of it, not just always getting to run and reap the benefits of having people cater your 100-mile long buffet.